a friendship that'll never ever end.
Run!
It's a beautiful day in the neighborhood. Reaction Beanie Yo 628. Day in the neighborhood. My brothers and sisters, as we proceed to give you what you need, it is another Saturday, and we're about to go back to who? Nick freaking Crowley. Back to Nick Crowley, y'all. And the title of the video is YouTube's most disturbed family channel. Now, I just don't like the sound of this channel at all, Bean Team. I just don't even like the words that's coming out of this channel's mouth. You know what I'm saying, man? Like, I feel like this video is gonna deal with children and adults, and the adults are gonna be doing some of the most unimaginable things to the children. You know what I'm saying, man? I don't even know why I freaking clicked on this video. I don't know why I'm about to react to this video with y'all. I'm feeling kind of nervous. Long story short, short story long. But we're about to get into it. But before we get into it, Bean Team, y'all know what y'all got to do. Get whatever you might need. Get what you need, please. We are back to Nick freaking Crowley. Y'all got what y'all need. Y'all ready to go? Then let's go.
I just can't live with it. I'm very concerned for these kids. I just can't let this go any longer. Those kids, I think, are in very serious danger.
Chances are, when you think of a YouTube family channel, you picture something along the lines of this.
What's good, YouTube? You already know what it is. Hey, A7!
What's up, Team DO5?
These overproduced videos have become the norm in the realm of family-centric content, garnering an equal amount of both fans and critics alike, with some of the main criticisms across the board being exploitation and manipulation. The idea that these parents paint themselves as having these perfect families, when in reality they primarily view their children through the lens of content creation, oftentimes to their detriment.
So if you could pray for us, we appreciate it. I love you guys. Come here, come closer for the video, come closer. Come closer! Act like you're crying. Really quick.
I am crying.
Go like this.
No, Mom, I'm not just usually crying.
No, I know, but go like this for the video.
With their glaring motivation being to make obscene amounts of money and gain worldwide fame. But if you look deeper beneath the mansions, fancy cars, and millions of subscribers, you'll find that most family channels here on YouTube actually look something more like this. Wholesome moments captured by parents not as a way to make money or gain fame, but to immortalize memories that otherwise might someday be forgotten, with these videos often accounting for some of the most wholesome content on this whole site. But as with everything in our world, there are always outliers, and buried within these perfectly inconspicuous accounts lies one page in particular whose backstory is so evil that it can only be described as one of YouTube's most disturbed family channels.
Jennifer Hart, what do we know about her?
We weren't duped. That love wasn't fake. They loved their children.
Get whatever you may need.
Before we get into today's case, I want to first thank our sponsor.
Yeah, like I said earlier, y'all, I don't know why I decided to watch this video with y'all, man. Because I knew it was going to involve children and freaking parents. You know what I'm saying, man? Children and adults, which are their parents, doing some of the most crazy-ish. And yes, man, we all know that there are a lot of parents out here that put their children on social media just to try to make freaking money out of them. You know what I'm saying? Just for financial gain. I don't even know if this is the end of the commercial, but let's just freaking go.
Crowley to get up to $200 off your Helix mattress plus 2 free pillows.
Let's go.
February 16th, 2008, Jennifer Hart begins her own personal YouTube channel, using the account for browsing and liking videos, though never really having time to upload her own. Just 2 years prior in 2006, Jen and her soon-to-be wife Sarah had adopted 3 children, Abigail, Hannah, and Marquise. And though taking on this many kids at once seemed to be a daunting task, the Harts actually embraced the challenge, loving it so much that just 2 years later in 2008, they would adopt 3 more children, Sierra, Devante, and Jeremiah. To add the cherry on top of their newly formed family, the couple would tie the knot in 2009, and in the span of just 3 years, these college sweethearts had become the married mothers of 6. Taking all this into account, it makes sense why Jen wouldn't have the free time to post on her channel, though this would eventually change by the end of 2011, when her very first video would go live. This wholesome clip would kick off a rather consistent streak of uploads throughout the following year, with each having a focus on Jen's children, and specifically the many adventures that they shared. In some clips, we see the kids dancing at music festivals, or exploring the wilderness on a group hike. No matter what, they always seemed to be out doing fun and interesting things, and they always had big smiles on their faces, making it seem apparent that the Harts were in fact a happy family. But not—
Yeah, so far so good, right? The kids smiling in the videos, you know what I'm saying, man? It's awesome that they adopted 6 children, you know what I'm saying? Like, everything so far so good, but boy, we know it's about to go so bad, so terrible in a couple of minutes. Let's just find out.
Not just that, they also clearly had strong morals as well, with these festivals that they often attended always being themed around the idea of love and inclusivity. At one point, they even uploaded a performance featuring 4 of the children, with lyrics further asserting their desire to make the world a more unified place.
This is a place where all relations bring celebration to meditation, giving thanks for all.
All in all, it's a rather touching account, with one of the younger sons, Devante, clearly being the star of the show, as the camera always seemed to be on him, with the young boy even having a few solo performances on the channel. And though I'm sure they'd never admit it at the time, it's not hard to tell that he was the clear favorite of the bunch. But most noteworthy for now is that in multiple videos he's seen donning a sign that reads "Free Hugs." Devante would wear this to many of the family's public outings, and in turn attract a large amount of attention that Jen would then film and publish on her social media pages, which wasn't exclusive to just YouTube, as she was even more active across her Facebook page, posting pictures and stories about her children, including multiple photos of the infamous Free Hugs sign, a sign that was about to thrust the family into the public eye for the very first time.
There is growing outrage tonight after an unarmed African-American teenager was shot and killed by police in the St. Louis suburb of Ferguson, Missouri.
Following the killing of Michael Brown Jr., a rally was held in Portland, Oregon, opposing racial injustice. And for the Hart family, this call for unity fit perfectly with their perceived beliefs. So Sarah and Jen took the children to the protest, where Devante would again wear his signature sign, leading to this moment being captured by cameras. It was an incredibly inspiring and optimistic picture that would immediately be shared all across the world, with most of us having probably seen this at some point in our lives, whether we remember it or not. And
Yes, I remember this picture, y'all. I remember this. It feels like I'm getting deja vu right now, but I don't remember this story. I don't know if I heard it from Mike from that chapter a couple of years ago, Dive Trip. I don't think it came from Mr. Ballin, maybe Tragedy Tales, but I most definitely remember this freaking picture. But this is spooking me the F out. You know what I'm saying, man? Just because I know that behind the scenes, these kids are freaking suffering with these 2 women that's supposed to be their mothers. Let's go.
Not only did it represent hope for so many across the country, it also perfectly encapsulated the message that the Harts were trying to send. They clearly wanted to be perceived as this loving family who stood firmly against hate, which, just based on their content, they truly seemed to be, despite the fact that it was all nothing more than a facade. Across Jen's Facebook page, she mentions numerous times that Abigail, Hannah, and Marquise were her and Sarah's first children, even saying how Abigail was the first of her children that she ever held in her arms, adding that that was the moment she became a mother. And as sweet as these words are, they technically aren't completely true. In reality, 1 full year before Jen and Sarah adopted their first group of children, they had actually fostered another child, a teenage girl named Lee. Together, the three lived peacefully for around 6 months with no real issues, though around the end of this time, something seemingly switched within the mothers, and for Jen specifically. Suddenly, they grew cold towards their new child, often picking fights or even just ignoring her for days on end. They also started to constantly complain to friends about having to take care of her, and they didn't seem to be taking their roles as mothers very seriously. At one point, they had remarked to friends that they had caught Lee on numerous occasions rummaging through the trash and looking for food, which further added to this strange, newfound tension within the household. Despite this fighting, however, the mothers would eventually agree that Lee would be able to stay with them until she was 18, also adding that she was going to have to take on the role of being a big sister, as they were planning on adopting 3 children. And though they had their rocky moments, Lee was just relieved that she had a place to stay. However, just 1 week after meeting what would become their first group of adopted kids, Jen and Sarah would drop Lee off at her standard therapy appointment and never return.
Wow.
Lee was obviously devastated by their abandonment, but perhaps most hurtful of all was the fact that Jen and Sarah never spoke to or even about Lee ever again, immediately moving on to their new children and parading their loving household all over social media, while essentially rewriting Lee out of their family's history.
And that's a red flag. That's a red flag right there. You know what I'm saying? That they just abandoned Lee like that. But being for real, that's probably the best thing that could have happened to Lee. Them abandoning her.
Treatment of their first foster child immediately calls into question the online persona of the Hart family, as there was nothing loving about the way they left Lee. But on this note, you might be wondering, why would they even have to sell an online persona at all? Looking at the aforementioned popular family channels, there's a very clear reason why they manipulate their audience: money. This type of content is some of the most lucrative on all of YouTube, and given these parents' desperation for the limelight and wealth, they would do just about anything for it, including exploiting their kids and manipulating their audience. But just looking at Jen's channel, well, it's obvious that this was never gonna make her wealthy and famous. But despite this, these mothers did actually have a good reason to put on this facade, as they weren't aiming to manipulate the entire world, but instead, they were merely trying to manipulate those around them. In 2008, one of the Hart children, Hannah, was stopped by her teacher after noticing a large bruise on the young girl's arm, and when questioned about how she had gotten it, Hannah would admit that her mother, Jen, had struck her with a belt. This incident would be reported to police, with teachers adding that Hannah also had been having bizarre issues with food, as she was caught stealing snacks from other classmates and taking food from the trash, just like Lee had done years before. Though immediately after being questioned about this, Jen would pull all of her children out of school and have them spend the remainder of the year being homeschooled, with the case being closed soon after.
And just the thing, I gotta point it out now, y'all, because it's the second time that it had happened. The children that's under her foster care, these 2 women foster care, digging, getting food out the trash, like that just would lead you to believe, right, Bean Team, that they hungry, that they not getting fed at home. That's just one of the first things that'll pop up in your mind. And for it to happen a second time, man, where the authorities at? They not keeping up with this case. These foster parents, are they even still eligible, or are they still deserving? I don't know the right word to even be foster parents at this point. I feel like this is gonna be one of them ones where the system is failing us again. I feel like some of this stuff could have been prevented.
The following year, the Hart children would be allowed to return to school, seemingly when Jen thought they were in the clear. However, at the end of 2010, an eerily similar instance would occur. One school day, Abigail Hart would complain to one of her teachers of having pain in her stomach area, and when asked exactly where it hurt, she said that she had owies on her stomach and back, before adding, "Mom hit me." Again, this incident would be investigated by police, who this time would interview each of the Hart children separately, which is where Abigail would admit that her mother had held her head under cold water before striking her with a closed fist, and all because she had supposedly stolen a penny. On top of this, the other kids would explain how their mothers often hit them as well, and rarely allowed them to eat. Sarah would go on to deny these allegations of neglect, but she would admit to having hit Abigail, a confession that led to her being arrested for domestic abuse and eventually spending 90 days in prison. Though there are some discrepancies here with this story, as some have reported that Abigail had actually said that it was Jen who had hit her, and that Sarah was merely taking the fall for her. But either way, Sarah would serve her sentence in April of 2011. Things didn't stop there, however, as after Sarah's release, Hannah Hart would go to the nurse's office and begin begging for food, claiming that her parents were again refusing to feed her, and that she hadn't eaten all day. In response, Sarah claimed that she was merely playing the quote-unquote food card, and proceeded to immediately pull all of the kids out of school once again, to which this time they would never return, as the family packed their bags and moved from Minnesota to Oregon practically overnight. And conveniently enough, it was right after this move that Jen started her consistent posting across social media, portraying their family as picture perfect. This channel was never made to make money or to make the family famous, but just based on the timing alone and their hyperfixation on peace, immediately following all of these horrible accusations, I don't think it's crazy to assume that these videos were uploaded in an attempt to repair the family's image, and even to potentially thwart criticism or investigation into their alleged abuse. I mean, the children are quite literally shown in one video singing the phrase, "We are so provided for," over and over again, conveniently right after their parents were questioned about neglecting their kids.
We are so provided for. We are so provided for.
See, this one of them examples of how your eyes and your ears can freaking deceive you, Bean Team. Like, you looking at them kids and you think they all so happy and everything is all good in the hood. But boy, if you know, you freaking know what's going on, man. I told y'all this was gonna be one of them crazy, spooky ones, and it most definitely is. Them kids sitting right there smiling through the pain, man.
And this isn't merely speculation either. These parents had a legitimate history of abuse, both proven and alleged. Plus, between the multiple instances of children desperately rummaging through the garbage for food, and the claims that they were never fed, made this family truly seem like a nightmare. And based on this, realistically, no one would or should view them as a model family. Yet that's exactly what they were to friends and family. In fact, one close friend would later state that everyone was envious of them. They were the perfect people with the perfect kids. And this is in large part due to their posting on social media, making it clear that this online facade was in fact working, despite the fact that behind the scenes, the horrors within their home were only getting worse. Having been aware of the family's sudden and suspicious move, authorities would launch an investigation into the Harts, revealing just how controlling the mothers were. In the home, the children were not allowed to speak unless they raised their hands. They were not allowed to wish each other happy birthday, and they were not allowed to laugh at the dinner table, a stark contrast to the household that Jen spoke of on her Facebook page, where all the kids have an equal voice. On top of this, the children were also severely underfed, as the two mothers used food as a means of further controlling them, thus explaining why they were always hungry at school. And if you look back at the videos on Jen's channel, you start to realize that the kids are incredibly skinny, and they appear far younger than their actual ages, with some viewers even pointing out that the animals seemed better fed than the actual kids themselves. But despite these findings and the history of abuse, police would eventually choose not to press any charges. And one interesting note here is that the investigation lasted through the bulk of 2012, which was the same time that Jen just so happened to be the most active on her YouTube channel, just further adding to the theory that this page was designed to distract from their dark history. But now, with the police at least for the moment off their trail, the abuse only continued. In 2017, the Hart family would move to the state of Washington, where one night at 1:30 a.m., their next-door neighbor would receive a knock at the door. Standing there was Hannah Hart, the consistent whistleblower of her parents' abuse, who had jumped from her second-story bedroom to escape her house before telling the neighbor, "Don't make me go back. They are racists and they abuse us. Moments later, Sarah and Jen grabbed the child and brought her back home. Upon being questioned by the neighbor, Sarah claimed that Hannah was lying and that her behavior was due to her being a drug baby, an excuse that failed to work as the neighbors would still end up calling the police.
Thank God y'all called the freaking police, man. Someone please call 911 freaking 1, man. Seriously, man. And also, y'all, one thing that just standing out to me that Nick said that I just gotta point out, the main thing that get on my nerves with this freaking, my AirPod fell out. But with this freaking abuse, man, the thing that get on my nerves is the fact that they had to raise their hand just to speak in the house. Can you imagine growing up like that, being team in your household with your parents or your guardians or whoever may be? You couldn't speak with unless you raised your hand, and if you spoke without raising your hand, you probably got your tail whooped. Like, can you imagine growing up like that? That right there just hit me hard for some reason. I don't know why. It's a lot of effed up ish. Like, they not even freaking feeding these kids. But that's just one of those things. Like, I can imagine growing up in a household like that. But I'm just glad, man, someone called freaking 911.
Told me about it. I just can't live with it. I'm very concerned for these kids. I just can't let this go any longer. Those kids, I think, is in very serious danger.
Only to be immediately brushed off, with a patrol car never being sent out. From that moment on, however, these same neighbors, the DeKalbs, kept a watchful eye over the family, noticing their bizarre patterns and mistreatment of the children, and before long, another one of the kids would come to them for help. This time it was Devante, who would stop by to ask for food, which he soon began doing on a daily basis, sometimes visiting as many as 3 times a day, while also subtly mentioning that they were all being abused and that they desperately needed help. And having finally heard enough, the DeKalbs again called 911, which prompted an immediate response from authorities, with the Department of Social and Health Services launching an investigation into the family.
I just gotta say too, man, what the freak took them so long to launch this investigation? Like, the signs been there. I'm talking about the police, the government, the whoever. Y'all know who I'm talking about. What took these child services? I'm talking about all them people. What took them so long to actually investigate on this case? That's freaking weird. The signs been there. Shout out to them neighbors too. Shout out to them most definitely, because they ain't just tried one time to let the authorities know. They tried over and over again till the authorities finally decided to investigate after this ish been going on for so long. I'm starting to get a little mad at this damn video now.
On March 23, 2018, the agency would stop by the Hart house and ring the doorbell, though they received no answer. 3 days later, on the 26th, they would arrive once again, garnering the same results, this time noticing that a stone wall on the driveway had seemingly been destroyed, with tire marks leading up to it, insinuating that the Harts had left in a hurry, as by that point, it was already too late. Sarah and Jen were obsessed with control, so much so that they would starve their children to more easily manipulate them, and their desire for control branched past their home as they wanted to shape the public's opinion on the family by using social media to spread their lies and erase their history. But with their own children breaking free and exposing them over and over again, and criminal charges now likely looming in the distance, they began to realize that this control was slipping away, and they couldn't bear the thought of it. So the day after the Department of Health and Services had gone to their home, Sarah and Jen would load their children in their vehicle and begin a road trip to California. And while driving on State Highway 1, Jen would pull the vehicle off the road towards a scenic overwatch, bring the vehicle to a complete stop, and then slam on the gas, driving the car directly off a 100-foot cliff into the rocky waters below, the result of which leaving no survivors.
Oh my freaking God, being team. I did not expect this, y'all. Like I said earlier, man, I remember one of those pictures. I remember the boy with the free hug sign around his neck. I think I remember this story, but goddamn, man, I don't remember this part at all, man. And the whole time I'm listening to the story, I'm thinking like, man, these children, I hope it don't end up with these children dying. I don't know why I watched this one with y'all, man. This is freaking crazy. Oh, I don't even know who all has passed away at this point, but I'm just gonna say rest in peace. Jesus freaking Christ. Let's go.
Initially, those close to the family swore up and down that this had to be an accident, as after all, they were the primary targets of the Hearts media manipulation, though any thought of this being accidental would quickly be thwarted by Sarah's search history, as during their road trip she had looked up, can 500 milligrams of Benadryl kill a 125-pound woman, and how long does it take to die from hypothermia while drowning in a car? It would also be determined that Jen was heavily intoxicated during the time of the crash, and that the mothers had in fact bought Benadryl while on their road trip and served large amounts of it to their children within their sandwiches, with Sarah herself having taken 42 of the pills, proving that this entire event was in fact orchestrated by Jen and Sarah. The red flags, the warning signs, they were all there, but to those on the front lines of the Hearts propaganda, this was the shock of a lifetime. But between the loving posts, the family pictures, and the heartwarming videos, how much of it was actually real? Well, very little, if any. Following the murders, it would be heavily theorized that most, if not all of the photos and videos on Jen's social media were in fact staged, with one cameraman who had photographed the family stating that Jen does this thing with her Facebook page where the kids pose and are made to look like one big happy family, but after the photo, they go back to looking lifeless. While another witness claimed that the starving kids were given food as a reward for posing for these photos. And on Jen's YouTube channel specifically, it seems to be more of the same, as although these clips may seem so natural and normal, the reality is that they too were planned by Jen, with the smoking gun being one video clip in particular in which she made a critical editing mistake. In it, Jen forgets to edit out the beginning, which shows the kids waiting and staring at her as she directs them on where to stand. Each child has an empty and fearful look in their eyes and are deathly silent. And upon being moved into the perfect position, the children then begin to walk naturally, as if they were being impromptu recorded on just a regular hike. It is an extremely chilling video in which we get to see the influence of Jen behind the camera on full display. And to make it all the more terrifying is the fact that throughout the rest of her channel, the kids often have this same look in their eyes, showing us that even these seemingly unplanned spur-of-the-moment videos were likely staged and controlled, at least in part, by Jen and Sarah. And the deceit didn't just come from their photos and videos, it also came from their own words. They claimed to love their children, yet it would later be revealed that Sarah had spoken privately to friends about how much she regretted adopting them. They preached veganism on both of their Facebook pages, yet when police searched their home following the crash, they found a fridge full of meat. They stood firmly against racism online, yet given the testimony of Hannah and others around the family, many believe that they were actually themselves racist, with some even labeling them as white supremacists. And finally, they preached peace. Yet for years they beat their children and eventually stole their lives. And if there's any question as to how effective these lies were at making them seem flawless, just listen to what their friends had to say following the crash.
It doesn't compute. I'll tell you, none of that lines up with the people that we all knew. Jen and Sarah really were the kind of parents that I think the world desperately needs.
We weren't duped. That love wasn't fake. They loved their children. They weren't white supremacists. They just were isolated. They were in pain.
Even to this day, with the years of abuse and the final act of murder on full display, some friends of the Hearts still remain in denial, refusing to believe that they had been played. Though the reality of the situation is undeniable, with other friends having come to terms with the betrayal by stating things like, "Everyone always loved and supported her to an insane degree, myself included. It's easy to see how fake it all was in hindsight, and knowing them via social media after, everything seemed believable. I looked up to Jen and wanted to be a mom like her one day." And I think the most substantial of all these witnesses was the neighbor of the Hearts, a man who got to witness the family when their guard was let down, and look past the facade and see them for who they truly were.
You know, there's a lot of people online saying that they were beautiful people, and at some time they may have been, but that is not what we saw next door.
Hell no, they weren't no damn beautiful people, man. Like, seriously, man. Like, I don't know how anybody could look at them as being beautiful people. Like, that lady got up there saying all that craziness. Like, they are not guilty of what they did and they was innocent and they would never harm a fly. And I'm not gonna even I'm not even pulling the racist card on them. Like, they did it because they was freaking racist. I don't care what color the little children was that they murdered. They still murdered little children. Long story short, story long, man. They are freaking evil, man. This one right here got me sick, y'all. Like, seriously, man. Because like I said earlier, I did not expect these kids to die. I did that one right there. That's where this really got me at. Let's finish it up. We almost done.
But as the story comes to a close, there is one detail that still needs to be addressed, and it's perhaps the most off-putting of all. Earlier it was mentioned that Devante was very much the star of the show on Jen and Sarah's social media. He was clearly the best actor of the bunch, and given that essentially every post seemed to include him or just straight up be centered around him, it's not hard to see that he was easily the favorite child of the mothers. And why is this important to mention now? Well, because his body has never been found.
Whoa.
Despite an exhaustive search, Devante's remains have never been discovered, not even a single bone fragment, leaving some convinced that the Harts allowed him to run away and start a new life, as after all, he was the favorite, while others believe that he may have actually been killed before the crash, as perhaps the mothers had taken his life upon discovering once again that he was out begging for food, with his body being buried somewhere else, though to this day, his true whereabouts remain a mystery. And despite his missing body, a judge would later rule that he likely died within the car alongside his family, which is most likely the case, though some still aren't convinced, as if it were any other child it might be easier to accept. But the fact that it was him, the golden child, just makes it all so particularly haunting.
Yes.
Looking back at the Jen Hart channel, now with her entire family having perished by her own hands, is indescribably dark, and it represents one of the most unique and disturbed forms of manipulation that I have ever seen on this site. And knowing the long troubled history of this family makes it no surprise to me that something of this nature ended up happening. But that's all thanks to hindsight. At the time, if you wanted to know about the Hart family, this is what you would find.
Hello, buddy.
Wholesome family moments that seem just like the other millions of accounts here on YouTube, that in actuality were carefully orchestrated pieces of a fictitious story that Jen and Sarah were crafting, a story that would only be exposed when it was already too late. I want to give a huge shout out to my gold tier and god tier patrons, Alexander Duran.
Oh my God, Bean Team. You see why I ain't want to watch this with y'all, man? Oh my Jesus, man. First of all, just first and foremost, rest in peace to all those beautiful kids, man. Like little freaking children, and seeing all those different videos of them. And then when you hear the outcome of what happened to them after all the abuse that happened, oh man, I guess if I want to try to be positive, not even the right word. If I just want to try to put some light on the situation, whatever, man. If I want to look at it the best way I can, at least God called them home so they wouldn't be abused no more by those freaking witches, those freaking bitches. You know what I'm saying, man? Like, seriously, man, I hope they ass is rotting in freaking hell. And that goes to another thing that y'all know I freaking hate over here on our channel. I'm pretty sure y'all hate it too. These freaking murderers who not only murder people, but then you want to murder yourself because you too scared to face the consequences here on earth. But I'm glad they murdered themselves. I ain't finna say all that because YouTube be listening, man. YouTube be flagging me when I get to talking all that gruesome details of what really like that type of stuff. So I'm just shut up about that. But I'm just glad, long story short, story long, that they are. Goddamn, can I even say that? Fuck it, I'm gonna say it. I'm glad they are fucking dead, man. I'm glad they dead, but I'm not glad that they took the children with them. I'm not glad that they took the children, man, with them, man. That is so freaking crazy, y'all. Like I said, man, I was not expecting that part of the story. I remember this story from some freaking where, but I don't remember all the details, and then especially the last detail of Devontae. His body was not even found at the bottom of the cliff, man, in the river, the ocean, whatever. You know what I'm saying, man? So that just brings a whole nother mystery. Is he still alive to this day? I don't freaking know. F you to all the authorities, the police, the government, the child care services, all of them. F you to all them, man. F you to all freaking them, because y'all could have prevented this is from happening. Another thing I don't even remember Lee being adopted before they even start adopting the little children, man. This was just freaking crazy, because of the reason I'm bringing up Lee. I hope y'all follow me. I know I'm talking fast, but just keep up with me. As I talk fast, y'all gotta listen faster, because now I'm talking about Lee, man, and it's like I don't remember Lee from what I remember from this story. But even like Lee, man, was a first sign that something wrong with these two witches, these two bitches. They shouldn't be adopting kids out here, and y'all let them adopt all these kids. And earlier I was like, ooh, you adopt 6 kids, pretty good. All my AirPods falling out now, god damn it, man. But I was like, pretty good. You know, you adopt 6 kids, that's good, man. Good thing going on. No, it was not a good thing going on. It's like they was trying to adopt. The more kids they was adopting, the more abuse that was happening. They would just want to adopt as many kids that they could to abuse as many kids as they freaking could. Man, I can go on and on about this one, y'all. Great freaking video from Nick Crowley, y'all. Long story short, story long. I'm gonna go and let y'all go now before I go on to another freaking tangent about this video. I still got things in my head that I want to say, but I feel like I have said enough, and I feel like we have been here long enough. And I digress. Before y'all leave, just please hit that like button, comment, subscribe, and do all that if you ain't did that yet. And remember this. Love, peace, and happiness. Stay safe. Don't stop. Keep going. Yeah.